Okay, we're very pleased to present to you next the astonishing speaker, Julie Rocker, who will be talking about the 5 arts keys to psychospiritual transformation.
Thank you. And I'd like to introduce my plant here, which has come along for the talk, the plant that has no name, that recently was a battery plant at Tesco's and now has come to the festival to receive enlightenment. So, I'm going to talk to you about the 5 arts, as Richard said. And the 5 arts are really a way of getting wisdom. They're a method of speeding up our wisdom and our enlightenment. It's a kind of a vehicle. So what I'm going to be doing is looking at the ancient Taoist methods for doing just that, getting wisdom. So maybe you want your enlightenment in a hurry, as I do. I don't actually want to hang around too much. And there's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of fear out there, and there's a lot of talk out there about 2012 being just around the corner. What do we need to do about it? How do we cope with it? Am I going to be in the right place? Am I going to have, is it going to be safe, etc., etc.? And people are looking to do a bit of this and a bit of that. Interestingly, I read about an ad in the paper that's offering home study kits on what to do about 2012. Just how to cope, how to make sure you're in the right place. So I think we all want maximum output for minimum input. And I think that a lot of efforts people are putting in are of a rather scattered nature. And I don't necessarily think the scattering is a problem so much as the focus. The focus must be placed in the right place. Should be applying themselves. And I see it a lot more in people who live in urban environments where they're not able to perhaps put the time they want to into their spiritual path. And they say to me, I feel really guilty. I haven't been doing my spiritual practices lately. I haven't been applying myself. And I guess the answer to that is that it's all spiritual practice. There's actually no need to fret that you're not applying yourself. So, how do we go about the getting of wisdom? What is the getting of wisdom? What does it mean? A very famous sage, Zhang Tzu, said these words: words exist because of meaning. Once you've gotten the meaning, you can forget the words. Where can I find a man who has forgotten the words so I can have a word with him? And what he's talking about is really the knowing. Not the knowledge, but the knowing. Because it's in the knowing, of course, we find enlightenment. In this day and age, there is so much information. I can't really remember the figure, but you know, they say if you strung all the words on the internet together, you could go around the sun and back, 27,000 times. There's certainly enough information out there. I think we need to move towards a different way of working, not necessarily more knowledge. More knowledge, sometimes we need knowledge, sometimes knowledge is the foundation of more knowing. But then we have to forget these words. So I think a lot of us are looking for the experience, the I am, not the knowing, the I am. So we can return to this kind of unclouded knowing. which is really a natural part of our development. And it brings with it a conscious connection with nature, with the flows of nature, and a heightened perception of your relationship in the world. It's certainly not at all goal-focused. Once you're goal-focused, you're back talking about knowledge again. Goal-focused pursuits are, I don't think, where we want to be going. And it's definitely not about a religion. It's not about a dogma. It's not about rules. It's not about any of that. If you think about religious creeds or ideas, they sit on the circumference of our being, and they hold a structure, some ideas that hold a structure for us to delve in and feel our own spirit, our own spirituality. But spirituality is the inner core. There comes a time when probably most people have to drop religion because it doesn't serve spirituality. If you change the circumference, the religion, you'll change a lot of things. But if you change the spirit, the center, it'll have a much more profound relationship for you. It'll have a more profound effect on your life. It's more of an inner revolution. So spirituality is kind of rebellion, really, whereas religion is more orthodoxy. It's more fundamental. So what I'm talking about here is transformation of the inner being. So yeah, spirituality. So on to the 5 arts. The 5 arts originated in China, and they're part of the Dao Shu, the art of the Dao. They're very well known in China. And as the Chinese have spread around the world, so have the 5 arts with them. Of course, they're still prominent in the East. And it is said that anybody who wants to be wise and to grow old and be wise when they grow old, and to be able to live in accordance with nature, a long and happy life, should study the 5 arts. And the thing about them is, well, here they are, so were taught to me: Shan, mountain; Yi, medicine; Ming, destiny; Shang, observation; Bu, divination. Now the thing is, sometimes people might get confused with the wushu with martial arts, which is also wushu. There's different characters, different meaning. This 5 arts is not martial arts. But what it is a lot of different things. The 5 arts sometimes include these things I showed you, but at other times they can include things like painting, pottery, martial arts, philosophy, medicine, magic, meditation, music, spirituality, divination, all sorts of things. So the classification of the 5 arts is really, really adaptive, which is something I kind of like about it, because then it's not dogmatic. There's some movement within it. But what it does do is points to disciplines that are about body awareness, which is kind of exercise, meditation, diet; health awareness, medicine, nutrition, food; mind awareness, self-knowledge, self-development, environmental awareness, observation and analysis, and finally resonance, connection, connecting out there in the big wide world. And when I looked at this, and then I looked at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So some of you might have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Abraham Maslow was a humanist psychologist, and he developed these hierarchy of needs, starting from the bottom. And he kind of said, well, look, until we get the physiological needs underway, basic things, shelter, food, sleep. If we've got somewhere to sleep and feed ourselves, then we can start worrying about things like the next one up, which is safety, security of the body, employment, resources, etc. And then when we've got safety, when we're feeling fed and we're feeling safe, we start to look at love and belonging. Do we belong? And, are we loved? And how do we fit in to our arena, our world? And then we start looking at esteem, self-esteem, confidence. And finally, after we've sort of come up this pyramid of levels, when we're feeling safe and secure and we know whether we're loved, we start to look at our self-esteem in the bigger world. And then beyond that, we can start to self-actualize, which is kind of the pinnacle of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And he was kind of saying, I guess, that, the Freudian psychology that was about at the time was really looking at the disease and the parts of us that weren't functioning. And he developed this model to look at our growth instead, what was functioning. And when I looked at it, and then looked at the 5 arts, the font's out a little bit on this, so the original's a bit prettier. But if we look at the 5 arts starting from the bottom, the first one is about man, it's about exercise, it's about physiology in a way, it's about your body, it's about the earth and how you connect to the earth. And then the next one up is medicine, nutrition. So once you've kind of become body aware, you start to look at how to fix it, how to maintain it. And then comes destiny, self-development. So you've kind of become aware of your body, you're starting to look after it, and then you're starting to look at how you fit in. What's your purpose? What's your potential? What does it all mean? Where are you going? Next comes observation environment. So now you kind of, you know where you're going, but you can start to kind of forget your ego a little bit. You can relax with the ego and start to focus more on the environment around you, how it serves you, how you can work with it, etc. And then finally, where Abraham Maslow talks about self-actualization, we can see resonance and connection. So you're kind of connected into the big web of etheric energy, and you can start to resonate and connect. So just to talk a little bit about the foundation of these arts is to talk about Taoism. And it's a form of thought that goes back, or philosophy that goes back to about the same time as Buddha and Confucius. The great sage lived around, Lao Tzu lived around 500 BCE. And it's a philosophy that's never really been systematically classified at all. So although it's now developed into a religion, in its essence, it's not a religion any more than the knowing how to tell the time is a religion. You know, we've got this construct where we divide the hours of the day up into hours and minutes and so forth. But it's not really a religion, it's just an idea that we can kind of all agree on and start to look at the rhythms of the day and how things work. And Taoism is a bit like that. It has become subject to many cultural and occult and cult practices as it's gone on, as time has developed. And there's lots of sort of splinter groups. But basically they all agree that the Tao has no name. It is that which you cannot name. It is that which you cannot touch. And is beyond any definition, is beyond description, is unknowable. It has no form, and therefore it doesn't undergo change at all. It's indivisible, inaudible, imperceptible. So we can start to look at ourselves in this light. We can start to see where we sit on the tide of change. Five arts is one of the ways of doing this. So from the Tao, and this has been a little bit mucked up by the fonts here, but from the Tao came the Wu Qi, which is the great circle, the great nothingness, the great formlessness. And the Wu Qi was further then divided into yin and yang. You've probably all heard of yin and yang, where yin is the more receptive, dark, passive type energy. And yang is much more direct and much more direct and open and hot. It's the sun, it's arriving, whereas yin is departing, etc. And some things, this plant, for example, adapts really well. When it becomes yin at night, it closes up its little leaves and comes up like this. And when it becomes hot and open during the day and sunny, it opens up again. So it responds to the yin and yang of the day, just naturally. Clever plant. So I want to go into having that little bit of a foundation into the actual five arts. The first one is Shan, mountain. And it's really about body awareness and the inner cultivation of a person. And it includes, traditionally, things like Qigong, Tai Chi, Taoist philosophy, meditation, and nutritional health. But it also includes things like yoga, exercise, walking the dog, juicing, chanting, connection, drumming, listening to the earth, hugging a tree. It's about your awareness of your body and your body's aura and connecting with what else, with the other parts of you, with that which is not your body, that is your spirit. So I just thought I would just share with you a little practice that's quite easy that relates to this art. And it's about washing your hands. Because if you can wash your hands with awareness, you start to connect. And it's something we need to do all the time. There's a lot of, what should I say, publicity about hand washing at the moment. We've kind of cleaned up a lot of the other germ fields. We've got sewage, we've got all these other things happening. There's a lot of talk about washing your hands, but that's about kind of germ theory, and what I'm talking about is energy theory here, but washing your hands in a way that means connection. So if when you wash your hands at least once a day, twice would be better, you think about maybe washing right up to the elbow, and bringing the qi right up to the elbow as you wash your hands. And then what you can do is connect the point that's called Nei Guan, which is the inner gate. And if you just look at your arm and take 3 fingers and place them above the crease. Then in the center, right where this annoying band is Neiguan. I show in this hand. So 3 fingers, this is Neiguan. And that's the point that's, it's on the pericardium 6 it is. That's the point that is often used for nausea or travel sickness or, you know, even things like morning sickness. If you've got nausea, you can hold that point and let it go. So it releases toxins from the body. So as you wash your hands, if you can connect with that point, connect one to the other, or just simply connect the water, you can start to release the toxins from your body. It's a marvellous practice. So has everybody found Neiguan on their hand? Yeah. You can just give it a little push. It might feel a little bit more sensitive. Sometimes it's also related to psycho-emotional release. So sometimes it will bring tears as you release the toxins from your spirit. So that's a really goodie. And there it is, Neiguan. Next of the 5 arts I want to talk about is Yi medicine, which is about maintenance of health and healing. Eating kind of goes with Shan, the one I talked about before, because it's about your body rhythms. But getting well and nutrition goes with Yi. The Chinese medicine places a lot of import on food therapy, really. But traditionally, Yi includes things like Chinese medicine, acupuncture, herbs, moxibustion, which is about using herbs to heat certain points in the body and tonify them where they're too yin to make them more yang. Massage, nutritional therapy, but it's also about other things. Osteopathy, it's about health. It's about ways of recognizing that things are out of balance and you need to balance them. Midwifery, etc. So, in talking about Yi medicine, I'd like to talk about water and the health of water. Water really makes up our world, and depending on who you believe, we're between 70 and 85–90% water. We're water beings. And water is really kind of a reflection of the planet, our planetary soul. Water that's good for you, is very healing and high pranic energy, well structured. So it gives you life. It's a transmitter of life. Water that's high in hydrogen and therefore electrons works in your body as a powerful antioxidant, and it also carries toxins away from your cell. So looking after water, your water in your life, is one of the easiest ways that you can increase your pranic energy or your health quotient. It's very easy. Take good water and automatically 85% of your body is receiving good energy. So even if you're kind of crap at your diet, good water, you know, it takes you a long way along the way. There's sort of no excuse for not doing good water. I mean, sometimes you have to do the best you can. You know, sometimes you can't always get the best water and you have to drink from a plastic bottle or something. But really, we must be limiting plastic bottles. We must, you know, be paying attention to water because you make it, which I'm going to go and talk about. So the water out of a tap, due to public sanitation and all sorts of things, is treated. It's treated and it's full of crap. It's full of a whole lot of information you don't want to know, a whole lot of pesticides, residues, it's full of vibrational energy, and at the very least, it's stagnant and not life-giving. So it's not really working for you. If you think that water holds all this energy, whether it's good or bad, that's what you're taking into your body. The work of Emoto, Marcel Vogel is very well known. They talked about the water and the way it can hold information. And Emoto was able to do these amazing photographs of different crystals. And when he spoke happy words to the crystals were beautiful. And when the water was subjected to pollution or other information fields, it was ugly and not so useful. So it's well known that water holds information, basically. So first thing we need to do with water is get rid of the muck that's in it. You need to filter it. If you're not filtering it, you need to go and buy yourself a jug, a filter jug of some sort, so that you can filter your water. Who's filtering their water? Yeah. So if you're on tap water, even if you're on tank water is basically, rainwater is basically distilled water, but the rainwater has come through layers of atmosphere and it's going to pick up lots of dioxins, and that's, you know, in the water. And they've discovered, like, even the, you know, North Pole, or, you know, in the Kalahari Bushmen or the Aborigines, the water there's, you know, full of dioxins. So it's not even about being out in the bush and having good water, it's everywhere. So the first thing you need to do is filter your water. In an ideal world, you would distill your water or use rainwater to start with and then filter it. By distilling it, you create a blank slate. So now you have water without anything in it. It's not really very life-giving, but it's empty. It's got nothing in it. And you can buy a home distillation plant for about £200. And that will set you up. And then it's a lot cheaper to run than it would be to, say, buy water. A lot cheaper to create water. So filter it or distill it. And then you need to look at putting the minerals back in it, because distilled water has no solids in it at all. It's dead, really. When we have total dissolved solids of 50 parts per million, we have the best water, the healthiest water for aiding the antioxidant properties in our body. Water that comes out of the tap is about 200, 250 parts per million. So it's got too much mineral gunk in it. We want lower minerals. So what you can do is you take your distilled water or your well-filtered water and you just add a little pinch of something like Himalayan crystal salt. And a little pinch for, say, 2 litres of water will bring up the water to 50 parts per million total dissolved solids. So now you've got water that's mineralised, but you need to now program it. You need to now put life into it. So what you need to do is create a vortex in it. Now there's fantastic machines, of course, that you can buy that do this, that have got, you know, pure silver paddles and will stir it for 14.5 minutes, or this way and then that way, and create a vortex and energize the water. But you can do it yourself by stirring. Stirring it one way, stirring it the other way, and creating this vortex. And this is writing on the back of work by Victor Schauberger, a German who discovered that water that has this vortex created is a lot more available to us. And if you're interested in reading more about this, Gabrielle Cousens has done a lot of work on it, from the Tree of Life. Dr. Gabrielle Cousens. and he has called Spiritual Nutrition. There's a lot of information about this. So once we have a live water putting into our body, it has the ability to communicate with all the different cells of our body, intracellularly. And then with all the different water out there, all the different water molecules out there. So the water that's vibrating in your body at this high pranic level will communicate with other water molecules out there at a high pranic level. And automatically, without doing very much at all, you're healthy and you've brought your vibration up to a much, much cleaner energy level. So as a sort of a practice of yi, if you're wanting to follow the 5 arts, water is the easiest, quickest, most accessible thing to alter. Change water and you change your life. Plus, you know, the practice of making your water, which is kind of a Shan practice, the first art I talked about, where you're talking about a rhythm of focus in your body. You know, just spend a little bit of time. Doesn't really take much. You see a little bit of prayer as you add the vortex to the water, a little bit of prayer into it, a little bit of love into your water, and you've got just amazing quality pranic stuff. Okay, so the next art is Ming. It's destiny. And it's about fate and individual potential, is Ming. Traditionally, it would be about astrology, really. It would be the Bazi, 4 pillars, Ziwei, Minghua. These would be the tools that ancient Chinese would use to look at people's destiny, people's Ming. Today we can probably include other techniques, but really it's about starting to look at where you fit in, who you are, you know, what kind of a person you are. It's no point trying to follow your enlightenment by meditating for hours like a monk if that's not your nature. If you're very fiery, you're going to find it very hard to sit in a monastery cross-legged meditating for hours. You're going to want to be a lot more expansive. You know, you're going to want to perhaps dance. You want to be a dancer. If you're very watery, you know, you might want to write poetry, or you might want to, you know, get into dream interpretation. By looking at your Ming, you can have an idea about who you are. You can also have an idea about how the people around you fit in and what they can do for you. So I thought we'd have a little bit of look at very, very simple astrology. And it's based on 5 elements. Does anybody here know 5-element theory? No? 5-element theory is fantastic. Once you know yin and yang, 5-element theory, and maybe the 8 gua, you really know a lot. You really know all there is to know, actually, I would say. Just kind of a quick Reader's Digest version of 5-element theories. It goes something like this, that the whole world or the whole universe can be described by one or more of these elements, these 5 elements. And the very neat thing about the 5 elements is that they're all related to each other by one way or another. So if we just kind of look at starting at water, water's kind of the seed or the potential, sort of the impetus from which we come. You can liken this to a plant. As I said, it's the seed. And the seed becomes a plant, becomes wood. It grows. So the energy of the seed feeds the energy of wood. And then wood grows and seeks to know which way to go, seeks to know the path for growth. And then in its full swing, it becomes fire, the flower that blooms. And then as the flower blooms, it becomes the fruit, which is earth. Earth is the reward from this growing. And then as the earth and the fruit go down into decay, it becomes the minerals of the ground, the metal, more consolidated contractive energy that then comes again into the whole rhythm, back into water. So water feeds wood, wood feeds fire, fire feeds earth, and earth feeds metal, metal feeds water. But you can also see this other cycle where, I don't think I've got a pointer here, maybe I have. Yeah, here. So where water actually, whoops, all over the place. Water controls fire. Fire controls metal. Metal controls wood. Wood controls earth. So if we just take water, for example, whoops, come back. If we just take water, it has a relationship to all the other elements. It's either feeding an element, it's fed by an element, it's controlling an element, or it is controlled by elements. So we've got yin and yang, and we've got these 5 elements. Just descriptions of the world, as I said. Not facts, just models. And then we can look at it further and look at what's called the 8 Gua, which is a kind of a more information, more description about these different energies. Now, 9-star key, which is what I want to talk to you about, is a Japanese system that's developed from the Chinese system of Minghua. And it's really neat because what the Japanese have done with it, with a very complicated system, has made it a lot easier. And they've developed it for the use of particularly of personality and health and relationships. So it's very interesting and very potentially relating to Ming. It's a very useful system. And it's quite easy to do. So the idea is that there's cycles of time that relate to 9. And at any particular year, a different element or a different number will be in reign. And if you look at this chart, you should be able to find the year you were there, unless you're really old, and work out what number you are and therefore what element you are. Now in the Chinese calendar, Japanese calendar, the year actually doesn't start on the 1st of January. It starts on the 4th or 5th of February, which is kind of the beginning of spring in the Northern Hemisphere. So anybody born before the 4th or 5th of February? No, that's handy. You are? So you're kind of born the year before, right? So has everybody got their element? Yeah. So that's kind of talking about your, we've come off the bottom of the line there, but that's kind of talking about your potential, how you interact with the world, how you can best self-actualize. So if you're a 9 fire type, you're going to be charismatic and outgoing and, you know, quite impulsive. A 9 fire type is kind of the clown who likes to perform. Any 9 fires here? No? 8 is earth, 5 is earth, and 2 is also earth, but they've got slightly different qualities of earth. 7 is metal, 4 is wood, 1 is water. So not only can you look at what your element you into, in a way, you know, being a child again, or not being allowed to be a child, I should say. So, if you're interested in Nine Star Key, there are a lot of books written about it. John Sandifer would be the author I would recommend, but it's a really, really quick, accessible astrological model without learning a whole lot of astrology, and it's, or astrological association. And you're not having to feed them. On the other hand, you might want to hire someone who's your creative director. So you come up with the ideas and you hand it to them. So if you're a water person, you might want to hire a wood person who's going to be able to take this energy and run with it. You know, they're going to be what you create, what you make, where you go with it. 2's earth. 3's wood. Well, it's good. It's the same. So it's, if they're both earth, you're able to easily go from one to the other. Your childhood character is holding your year. So it's the same. It's an easy transition, easy to grow up. Some people's inner nature is fighting them. When they're on a cycle, it's not so easy to deal with. Sorry? Well, wood and metal is, you know, it's on this more destructive cycle. So there's a tension, you know. So it can be that it's just a little bit, it's the kind of tension that makes you grow. It's not maybe so easy. The transition's not so easy. You may be fighting authority a little bit more, depending on which is which, the month number and the year number. The year number. Yeah, so you kind of got to buck the system a little bit more. You know, it's a bit harder. Your year number is kind of not letting your month number misbehave in any way. So you've got to grow up quickly. Is it? Well, what you can do is you can get some water people around you. Okay? Because you're a metal person and you've got this wood energy, if you can get some water people around you, it'll be easier. You know, they kind of smooth the transition for you because your natural metal feeds water, water feeds wood. So instead of having to do it the hard way, you know, it's just a little bit more gentle. Okay, so the next of the 5 arts, the 4th art, is Shang, observation. Observation and analysis of the built, natural and built environments. And this one's really the category that holds feng shui, palmistry, body face reading, geomancy, but anything we're starting to be aware of the external environment and read the currents of the environment around you. And, you know, feng shui, a lot of feng shui is really very simple. Unfortunately, it's been made really difficult, really complicated, unnecessarily so. If you can understand yin and yang, you can really understand. Of course, the way things go, you've got to learn all this other bollocks first till you come back to the beginning and understand how simple it is. But it's really about learning how to read qi, learning how to read energy in the environment. And sometimes it's reading the obvious qi, but sometimes it's reading the more subtle qi And of course, embodied in it is the importance of yin and yang, wind and water. Feng Shui actually means wind and water. But it's also used for things like warfare. Reading the land, reading the way the forms of the land go. Just at a very simple level, you can work out how to ambush your assailant. You can look at house siting. You can look at why things work. Why, you know, we were looking the other day at why this manor house up here isn't a manor house anymore. Why it didn't hold the chi. What happened? Where did it lose its energy? So this is about Feng Shui. Very, very easy. Very, can be a very long road. And there's a lot of misinformation about it out there. But an important part of the five arts, starting to look outside yourself, how you fit into the cosmos, how you can develop a better, healthier way of being by being in the right time at the right place. A lot of people think Feng Shui is kind of magic, you know, and it's not really. It's really about knowing how to read Qi and grab the moment. There's a idea that we are born with 5 gifts. The first one of them is destiny. Second one is luck. And the third one is Feng Shui. The fourth one is philanthropy, charity. And the fifth one is knowledge. And the order of these is actually quite important. So the idea is that we come in with this destiny, and really you can't change a lot of your destiny. You sort of come in, maybe you were destined to be the emperor. The second one is luck. Depending on your destiny and what your destiny is, gives you the ability to seize the luck. You know, if you're really, you know, scrabbling to survive, you know, shelter, find wood to keep you warm, all these things, you really haven't got a lot of space to seize the luck. And this is where Feng Shui comes in. With Feng Shui, you can make the road a lot smoother. So you might have a crappy destiny, not much ability to seize the luck, but you can improve your chances by making the road smooth. So you could liken destiny to your car and Feng Shui to the road. If you've got a fantastic destiny, it doesn't matter. You know, you're in a Rolls Royce on a smooth road, and really you can cope. You know, there's people there to kind of shoo other people out of your way, and you can shine. But if your destiny is a bit more mediocre, which is kind of most of us, Feng Shui will just make that road a lot smoother, so that although you might be riding on an old clapped out car, the smoother road will make it a lot easier. Once you've sorted those things out, then you can improve your charity to others and improve your knowledge base, and things will be a lot easier for you. So this idea of Shang observation, very important. Feng Shui is also kind of, as I was saying, very complicated. So this is a representation of a lo pan, where you're actually reading different types of qis from different types of degrees on a compass, and using it for particular types of things, which might be warfare, might be siting of a dwelling, might be working out where the best qi is for a best purpose. The reality is that, before we go to that, you can actually do a lot of Feng Shui. What they used to do to check the Feng Shui is take a child with them on site. If you take a child below the age of 7 to a site, this is a very easy Feng Shui method, and the child doesn't like the site, they go, I want to go home, I'm sick of it, I'm bored. You know that the qi there is no good. You know that the qi is poor. On the other hand, if you can sort of take a child, take something for it to play with, and, you know, if it's happily stay there, play with its toys, the qi's good, the qi's healthy. So you're kind of using them like a canary in the cage. So that's what they used to do. Take a child along to for consultation. And it has to be, they used to use male children because they're more yang. They're more closer to living, they would say, than female children, more yin. So it would be a male kind of below the age of 7 or maybe 9 at a pinch. Okay, so the final of the 5 arts is Bu, divination. And kind of once you've achieved all these other arts, you're pretty well in a good place to be connecting to the great etheric web and being able to use your connection to anticipate what's going on, to use the synchronistic events and timing to connect with the divine. Classically, it relates to the Yi Jing, I Ching. You might have heard of the Yi Jing, I Ching, or the plum blossom method. And a lot of the Chinese 5 arts, traditional 5 arts, relate back to the I Ching. Certainly Feng Shui has its genesis in the I Ching. But it can also include things like dowsing, tarot, runes, horary, omen, scrying, etc. Divination. And as I've said, I think it's really about resonance. It's about connection. It's about extending your qi out to connect into other things. Very important. This is a bit screwed up on this slide as well. So here's just a little easy divination method. Ornithomancy, divination of the behavior of birds. And this was really big in Greek and Roman times, really, really important. And somebody who could do this was really held in high esteem. So the idea is that somebody would go out and they would designate a section of the sky, you know, to be their reading platform. And they would wait and they would perhaps do the rituals and the ceremonies and plant a staff. And then they would sort of look at what birds flew into that section of the sky after perhaps asking a question or wanting to divine a certain thing. And they would look at which direction it flew from. So in general, birds seen on the right are good, birds seen on the left are an ill omen. And then you can look at what type of bird it is that you can see. So it's very easy. So I guess I'd like to suggest whatever your bag is for enlightenment, if you can include one of these 5 arts, it'd be a lot easier for you. Be a lot more focus in your practices. And they're also called the 5 excellencies. And I guess in a way the idea was that you would study your whole life at these 5 arts, and you know, you would study until you were an old man, and by that time you're probably wise anyway. But we all need to seek it in different forms. There's a saying by, well, a quote from Peter Drucker: "The best way to predict your future is to create it." And I think that's very much the case. So I'm going to finish there. Are there any questions? Oh, I see. It's hard to get into the house to actually give it a full kind of a look. But if we look at the way the house is situated, and I think they must have come away from view from estuary to be a little bit more protected. You'd be safer back here than right, say if you built the house here facing the estuary, right? Because if you're facing the estuary, you have to hold that whole chi, right? Like a castle. And it was a house, not a castle. So they've built back a little bit. And if you look at the lay of the land on the house, what looks to be the back of the house has not, the land drops down behind it. So there's actually nothing protecting it from behind. There's no natural, what we call an armchair, giving it a good backing. Then if you look at the front of the house, which is I think the part we're sort of seeing, the area drops down to a slope. You know, comes down, there's a sort of a gentle slope running away. So there's a house with no backing and no front. They can't hold. So they've got no one sort of backing them up, and the ability to hold energy is compromised. Now what we know about the house is that it hasn't been lived in since, well, it hasn't been used since 1920. And during the First World War, it was apparently, before the racecourse, it was taken over, as many manor houses were in the UK. And the area, the flat land down there, was used as a landing strip. After the First World War, probably death, taxes and all these sort of things just made it too hard to hold. It doesn't have any backing behind it and doesn't have the ability to hold. So those things are really crucial in how well things fare, you know. If you start working where you can't hold energy and your bum's hanging out in the breeze, so to speak, it's just going to be a lot harder. Yeah. Okay. All right, Lynn. Thanks, everybody. Really the knowing. Not the knowledge, but the knowing. Because it's in the knowing, of course, we find enlightenment. In this day and age, there is so much information. I can't really remember the figure, but you know, they say if you strung all the words on the internet together, you could go around the sun and back, you know, 27,000 times. There's certainly enough information out there. I think we need to move towards a different way of working, not necessarily more knowledge. More knowledge, sometimes we need knowledge, you know, sometimes knowledge is the foundation of more knowing. But then we have to forget these words. So I think a lot of us are looking for the experience, the I am, not the knowing, the I am. So we can return to this kind of unclouded knowing, which is really a natural part of our development. And it brings with it a conscious connection with nature, with the flows of nature, and a heightened perception of your relationship in the world. It's certainly not at all goal-focused. Once you're goal-focused, you're back talking about knowledge again. Goal-focused pursuits are, I don't think, where we want to be going. And it's definitely not about a religion. It's not about a dogma. It's not about rules. It's not about any of that. If you think about religious creeds or ideas, they sit on the circumference of our being, and they hold a structure, some ideas that hold a structure for us to delve in and feel our own spirit, our own spirituality. But spirituality is the inner core. There comes a time when probably most people have to drop religion because it doesn't serve spirituality. If you change the circumference.
Okay, we're very pleased to present to you next the astonishing speaker, Julie Rocker, who will be talking about the 5 arts keys to psychospiritual transformation.
Thank you. And I'd like to introduce my plant here, which has come along for the talk, the plant that has no name, that recently was a battery plant at Tesco's and now has come to the festival to receive enlightenment. So, I'm going to talk to you about the five arts, as Richard said. And the five arts are really a way of getting wisdom. They're a method of speeding up our wisdom and our enlightenment. It's a kind of a vehicle. So what I'm going to be doing is looking at the ancient Taoist methods for doing just that, getting wisdom. So maybe you want your enlightenment in a hurry, as I do. I don't actually want to hang around too much. And there's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of fear out there, and there's a lot of talk out there about 2012 being just around the corner. What do we need to do about it? How do we cope with it? Am I going to be in the right place? Am I going to have, is it going to be safe, etc., etc.? And people are looking to do a bit of this and a bit of that. Interestingly, I read about an ad in the paper that's offering home study kits on what to do about 2012. How to cope, how to make sure you're in the right place. So I think we all want maximum output for minimum input. And I think that a lot of efforts people are putting in are of a rather scattered nature. And I don't necessarily think the scattering is a problem so much as the focus. The focus must be placed in the right place. Should be applying themselves. And I see it a lot more in people who live in urban environments where they're not able to perhaps put the time they want to into their spiritual path. And they say to me, I feel really guilty. I haven't been doing my spiritual practices lately. I haven't been applying myself. And I guess the answer to that is that it's all spiritual practice. There's actually no need to fret that you're not applying yourself. So, how do we go about the getting of wisdom? What is the getting of wisdom? What does it mean? A very famous sage, Zhuangzi, said these words: words exist because of meaning. Once you've gotten the meaning, you can forget the words. Where can I find a man who has forgotten the words so I can have a word with him? And what he's talking about is